The smell of burnt coffee and rain-soaked leather filled the diner, a scent Maya knew better than her own name. Tuesdays belonged to old men nursing cold coffee and bikers claiming the corner booth like kings on battered thrones. Usually the two worlds ignored each other. That morning, they collided. Maya froze behind the counter as Eleanor Vance slowly rose from her table by the window. At 84, she looked as fragile as glass. Her walker scraped across the worn linoleum while every eye in the diner followed her path toward the Serpent's Hand MC. Four bikers sat there, huge men wrapped in leather and tattoos. Their president, Grizz, looked up first. His hard gray eyes narrowed as Eleanor stopped beside their table. Her trembling hand reached into her purse and pulled out a pale lavender envelope. "For you," she whispered, setting it beside his coffee mug. Grizz noticed the fading bruise on her cheek and the fear hidden behind her watery eyes. "What is it?" he asked. "Read it after I'm gone." Before he could answer, Eleanor slowly turned away. A sharply dressed man near the entrance stood up immediately and grabbed her arm too tightly. Marcus, her nephew. Maya had seen him bring Eleanor to the diner for months. He always ordered for her, interrupted her, watched her like a prison guard. The bell over the diner door jingled as he led her outside into the rain. Silence filled the room. Ripper, one of the younger bikers, scoffed. Probably a complaint about the noise. Grizz silenced him with one look. Then he slipped the envelope into his vest. Outside, rain hammered the highway as the bikers rode several miles out of town before stopping at a scenic overlook. The lavender envelope suddenly felt heavier than steel. Grizz finally opened it. Inside was a shaky handwritten letter. "My name is Eleanor Vance. I am out of time. My nephew Marcus has taken my home, my money, and my freedom. He keeps me locked inside the house, and I believe he is poisoning me slowly. Today he is forcing me to sign away the last of my property. If you are reading this, I may already be gone." Attached to the letter was a small silver key. Eleanor explained that the key belonged to a storage locker holding proof of everything: financial records, a journal, and audio recordings of Marcus threatening her. She included her address and one final plea: "Please don't let him win." When Grizz finished reading, fury settled over the group like a storm cloud. Bear cracked his knuckles. "That guy's dead." "No," Grizz said coldly. "He's going to face justice." The bikers split up immediately. Bear and Ripper headed for the storage locker while Grizz and Spike rode toward Primrose Lane. Eleanor's house looked peaceful from the outside. Small garden, trimmed hedges, quiet neighborhood. The kind of place no one would ever suspect hid horror behind closed doors. Using the spare key hidden inside a ceramic garden gnome, Grizz unlocked the front door. The house smelled of lemon cleaner and sickness. From down the hallway came Marcus's voice. "One more signature, Annie. Then you can finally rest." Grizz stepped quietly toward the study. Through the cracked doorway, he saw Eleanor sitting in a wheelchair, tears running down her cheeks while Marcus forced a pen into her shaking hand. "Sign it," Marcus snapped. The door creaked open. Marcus looked up and froze. Two massive bikers filled the doorway like executioners. "Who the hell are you?" he stammered. Spike moved to block the exit while Grizz stared silently at the terrified old woman and the papers spread across the desk. Marcus lunged for the phone, but Spike grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall hard enough to rattle the shelves. Panic exploded across Marcus's face. Bullies always crumbled when someone stronger showed up. "You can't do this," Marcus shouted. "I'll call the cops." "Go ahead," Grizz replied calmly. He knelt beside Eleanor. Up close, the bruises were impossible to miss. "We got your letter," he said softly. The moment those words left his mouth, Eleanor broke down sobbing. Not from fear this time, but relief. Meanwhile, Spike efficiently tied Marcus with duct tape and dumped him in a corner like trash. Minutes later, Bear and Ripper arrived carrying a cardboard box from the storage locker. Inside were journals, bank documents, and a digital recorder. Grizz pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the room. "You stupid old hag. Sign the papers, or I'll make your last days a living hell." The room fell silent. That recording sealed his fate. Grizz pulled out his phone and called a reporter he trusted. Then he anonymously alerted the police about elder abuse and fraud at the house. Within 20 minutes, the quiet neighborhood exploded with sirens and flashing lights. Marcus was dragged out in handcuffs, screaming, while reporters swarmed the lawn. Eleanor, wrapped in a blanket by paramedics, clutched her journal to her chest like it was sacred. By the time police looked for the bikers, they were already gone. The story dominated local headlines for days. The respected nephew had been exposed as a monster. Financial fraud, elder abuse, attempted murder. The evidence was overwhelming. Marcus went to prison. Eleanor was moved into a safe assisted living residence where, for the first time in years, she could sleep without fear. The following Tuesday at exactly 10 a.m., the deep roar of motorcycle engines echoed through the parking lot. Four bikers climbed off their Harleys and walked inside, carrying a paper bag. Grizz handed it to Eleanor. Inside was dry wheat toast from the diner. Tears filled her eyes. "You came back." Grizz shrugged. "It's Tuesday." From that day forward, every Tuesday belonged to Eleanor and the Serpent's Hand MC. They brought stories from the road while she shared memories of her late husband. Somewhere along the way, they became family. The nurses quickly learned that nobody messed with Miss Eleanor Vance. Not while 100 bikers considered her one of their own. Maya, the waitress, also found her life changed. Her statement helped convict Marcus, and a week later Bear returned to the diner with an envelope from Grizz. Inside was $5,000 cash. Enough for college. Maya eventually became a social worker specializing in elder abuse cases, inspired by the terrified old woman who found courage when nobody else listened. Eleanor lived 3 peaceful years after that. When she finally passed away in her sleep, her funeral stunned the entire town. On one side of the chapel sat distant relatives. On the other sat over 100 bikers wearing leather cuts and bowed heads. As the hearse rolled toward the cemetery, motorcycle engines thundered like a final salute. Years later, the Serpent's Hand Motorcycle Club still told the story of the lavender letter. It became a reminder that strength means nothing if it isn't used to protect people who cannot protect themselves. Because heroes don't always look like heroes. Sometimes they look like an old woman with trembling hands. Sometimes they look like a waitress who pays attention. And sometimes they look like outlaws riding through the rain.